Attack on Titan. Season 4. Oh, it's a bop. I have criticisms, but overall, this was an outstanding season or first half of a season of television. We'll get into that in a minute. First, I just want to go ahead and admit thank you to my audience for over the course of several years breaking me down and getting me into the medium of anime, because Attack on Titan Season 4 is probably in like my top 30 to 40 seasons of television I've ever seen, and I would not have experienced it if it wasn't for the constant harassment. So, hey, thanks. And I'm going to frame this review like a criticism, compliment kind of wave on off here, Big Mac, Daddy, however you want to call it. And we're going to start with a couple minor criticisms that are going to focus on the actual medium of animation, because I know I've hit on these quite a bit, but there's still just a couple of these tropes that bother me. Like, anyone in any anime I have seen so far, if you're trying to sneak up on someone, will succeed. Even if you're a 50-foot tall monster titan, if you're trying to sneak up on someone, it's going to happen. It's just going to be okay. It doesn't bother me at all if it's Levi. Levi can sneak up on anyone he wants to, because I hope one day he sneaks up on me. Anyway, moving on though. Next thing. Only like 4 things happen at most every episode. 4 things occur, and then the rest of the episode is filled with people reacting to those things. That's just like the structure of every anime I've seen so far, and Season 4 of Attack on Titan is not immune from that criticism. But it speaks to the quality of the story and my investment in the characters especially, that I spend the rest of the episode reacting to it and enjoying seeing other people's just reactions to like these 4 things occurring, because wow, this show has grabbed me by the ribcage, ripped it out, and thrust it into the heart of caring about the plot. From the opening that focused on like World War I trench-style warfare to the political evolution and dynamics we get into as the season progresses, overall, every single beat of the story itself kept me invested in as a viewer. There was definitely a lot more action and things drawing me through at the beginning, and there were a few episodes in just past the middle point, I believe, here that I was certainly kind of going like, all right, let's go. But overall, the story of Season 4 so far is brilliant. In my humble, not super experienced anime opinion, Attack on Titan Season 4 is the best season we've gotten from the show so far, because we still have to finish the season with the second half, and it's just due to the level of payoff and really solid roots that the show is not over eagerly growing from, and I'll get more into that idea in a second. But first, let's get into some thematic discussion here, because the political messaging here is pretty heavy-handed, right? Like, no one's not gonna get the things they're referencing and talking about with all the politics going on. But like, hey, it's Attack on Titan. I don't think people are expecting a ton of subtlety and nuance, but the themes and the messages are framed around characters, and what we're focusing on as the audience is how these people are evolving and realizing the evils of what they're involved in, and on all sides, really. And that's the focus of this show. That's where everything's kind of coming to a point towards. These characters are motivated by fear, pain, and anger, and the damage, the results that come from that are so catastrophic. And that's the message we're supposed to take away from. Senseless violence begets senseless violence, and the characters are struggling with this reality that they're in this endless cycle of revenge and anger, and we're seeing the last generation deal with the ramifications of it, while a new generation is essentially indoctrinated into this horrifying cycle. I mean, you can see this perfectly where the show is stepping up the most, and that's Eren, who's fully bloomed into essentially the type of monster he originally hated and wanted to destroy. I'm giving a lot of praise for character development here. Not everyone's had this like insane arc, right? Sasha served a purpose here, but I don't find her character as a whole having been like totally changed from where she started from. Levi, you know, he's perfect. He doesn't need to change. But what I think this show makes up for, where it's having some characters aren't exactly evolving a lot, is having parallels and reflections generationally and showing how that's actually a part of who these characters are and what they're forced into, the patterns they're stuck in, and they have no choice to exist and live and die through. So while not everyone's necessarily changing a ton, their purpose and the representation of who they are is always quality. And there are a lot of people who have evolved. Eren specifically we need to talk about. Levi smacking the out of Eren in that one episode towards the beginning was so needed, and it felt good. But Eren is now someone who's willing to just make the sacrifice call for the greater good. And this plays out throughout the season, where now we're seeing him causing massive unrest within his own people. There is basically zealots following him, and he's responsible for more death than probably anyone throughout the show we've had like a direct connection with so far. I mean, the amount of people who had to die early on in the season and are about to die from where we left off because of his actions, his vision, his believing he's the answer and all this is going to be catastrophic. I mean, shakes and tremors throughout the whole show because of it. Like Attack on Titan, it's extra, it's over the top, as anime tends to be as a medium, but like it's actually serving very concise points and not overdoing it. And I want to really touch on this point because I find this to be the show's greatest strength overall. Attack on Titan has succeeded at doing a lot with actually like not too much in the world building department and staying focused. Some people are going to balk at that and say, what do you mean? There's like a whole fantasy world built here. And I agree there is. There's whole kingdoms, there's walls, there's the Titans and all this stuff, but it's not like a Tolkien level Middle Earth, super in-depth, nuanced thing. What they've done is they've built a very specific set scenario. There's hard lines of these walled cities and Titans and warfare and political setting, and they're not overdoing it. There's like some things in the world I do really like that they're going in depth about, the progression of technology, but that again serves a direct purpose for the themes they're going into around weapons of war. And that's where this show is absolutely like sniper precise, which I haven't seen in an anime yet. They're only getting into details. They're only really spending the time to evolve and grow what directly reflects and serves the overarching arcs and story. And that's chef's kiss right there. That's brilliant. That's why one of the episodes right now on IMDb has a 10 out of 10 rating with tens of thousands of reviews because they're that good. There's no fat here. It's like one of those super muscly Titans. It's just, it all serves a point and it's very well structured. So like, yeah, in comparison, it's a pretty simple fantasy world in a lot of ways, but that's a good thing. And this is actually something I think a lot of storytellers could learn from. It's very tempting to build and bloat and just throw in all these elements into your world because they're fun. Attack on Titan has not done that, and it's a phenomenal example of reaping the rewards of keeping your focus true. I mean, God, the Titans are brilliant stand-ins for the weapons of war of man. And obviously when the Goliath Titan detonates in a dock, essentially, what we see is a direct reflection into like the horrors mankind inflict on each other. And then we're actually having the weapons of man move past Titans. And so there's this balance, and it's a clear, obvious reflection commentary on how weapons of war, the military industrial complex, like there's a lot more I'm expecting from the second half of season 2. And I can't wait to see how they pay off so much of what they're setting up. I've seen a couple people say that the show is too bloody, it's too gory, but I vehemently disagree. Attack on Titan could not land home the messages it wanted to if it flinched away from the realities of warfare. And I actually think it does present that over-the-top gore in as a respectful sense as you could. It presents it as something horrifying always. It's never something to be marveled at or enjoy. There's even specifically a scene here where Levi is torturing someone he's kept prisoner, and it could be like a badass hero moment, but instead the sounds kind of focus on the pain this person's experiencing. I actually find Attack on Titan to be a representation of warfare in the fantastical sense, as it should be. Civilian casualties matter. The corruption and moral degradation of our heroes feels like this ocean wearing away at the rocks, and it's painful because it shows that they've changed so fundamentally because of this unflinching, horrifying world they exist in. And that is a actual respectful presentation in that sense, I believe. Yes, there are cool combat sequences, but in fact, I don't think there's ever violence without consequences. And that, to me, is what matters in that sense. And you feel free to disagree. This is a subjective matter. I mean, people just don't like violence being over the top, and I understand that. But it's over top in a way to make the viewer, to force you to be uncomfortable with the realities of the monsters and the characters we're following. I do want to add a little bit of an asterisk here to something I said, where I do think Attack on Titan glorifies violence in a way that some people will point out, where like people are presented like as cool and badass for being good at killing. But the thing is, the show like undercuts that with the consequences of what they're doing. And it's like, yes, on the sheer aesthetic level, I will agree with the people who will push back and say, no, this show does glorify violence in some ways. I think it does, but it also has like a backdrop to that if you have any actual like tact in your viewing and you're thinking through like what's happening in the show, suddenly it becomes very apparent that the show is not actually holding these people up, and it's almost like there's a propaganda surface and there's the actual depth and nuance underneath. There's a very specific and obvious reason why one of the characters we're following is a child who's being sucked into this cycle of violence, and you want her not to be. She's a political zealot who's willing to die for a country that's committing horrible crimes, and you're just like, yep, that's what people in this world are sucked into constantly. There's no break. Thematically, I think season 4 of Attack on Titan is one of the most impressive outings I've seen just from a show. And if I had to say like things I'm most excited to see resolved in the second half, obviously there's a bigger stories, but the dynamic between Zeke, is that how you say his name? I hope so, and Levi, can't wait to see how this comes to a head too, because their rivalry, their hatred, it feels so pure. I still don't like season 2. I don't know what happened there. It wasn't my favorite, but season 4 has redeemed the show. I would give it a solid 9 out of 10, and one that I'm going to be recommending and preaching to pretty much anyone I think might find any enjoyment, because getting through season 2 and enjoying season 1 and 3 are, yes, absolutely. It seems like it knows where to end too, which is honestly the biggest praise I can give to a show in today's modern TV climate, where so many shows are just dragged out to milk it for all it's worth. Attack on Titan has never been hotter, and it's coming to a close because narratively it needs to, and that is, I respect it. There are definitely some episodes that feel like, okay, come on, we could get through this faster, but that's really going to be something I just focus on as someone who doesn't enjoy this medium as much. Overall, this is exceptionally impressive. And I'm finishing my review here, and I even get into the incredible visuals that are just jaw-dropping throughout this show as well, and the score that just bangs. Anyway, guys, like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here, and have a good one, y'all. Peace. Check out my book, Reach of Peace, in the comments down, or links down below. Bye.